How can you find the whole in a percent problem? Think about this question during the lesson. Bree scored 90% on her math test. Out of the total possible points on the test, her score was 135 points. How many points were possible on the test? What is the whole in this problem situation? Bree scored 90%. How will the total possible points compare to 135? The whole in this problem situation is the possible number of points on the test. The total possible points will be greater than 135. Think 90% of what number is 135? How can you draw pictures and write equations to find the total possible points? Here is one way to solve the problem. Use a double number line diagram. Bree scored 135 points, which was 90%. Each mark on the line represents 15 points. How do you know that each mark on the line represents 15 points? You know that each mark represents 15 points because 135 divided by 9 equals 15. Add to find the total possible points, P. 135 plus 15 equals 150. There were 150 total possible points on the test. You can also solve the problem by using an equation to find the total possible points. 90% of what number is 135? Let P equal the total number of possible points. Which equation can you solve to find P?
Select your answer.
Solve 90% times P equals 135. Write 90% as a decimal. 90% equals 90 hundredths equals 90 hundredths. Solve the equation. There were 150 total possible points on the test.
Great job!
Now you know how you can find the whole in a percent problem.
Bree took another math test and scored 152 points, which was 95% of the total possible points on the test. What was the total number of possible points?
95% of the total possible points equals 152. So we know this is the equation we need to use because we remember from the previous examples that first we were trying to find the percent, and so the P was first, and we know we had to multiply because of that of. But this time we have our percent, but we're trying to find that total possible points that we need to find 95% of. And I also want to point out again that 95%, you move over that decimal place, that invisible decimal place on the end, and you move it over twice, and now you have a decimal. So now you do 95 hundredths. We need to get on the other side of the equation, and the inverse of multiplication is division. So we're going to do 95 hundredths on both sides. That cancels out. So the total possible points would be 152 divided by 95 hundredths, and that is equal to 160. So the total number of possible points is 160 points.
The students in one classroom sold a total of 40 tickets to the talent show. They sold 200% of the amount of tickets that they sold last year. How many tickets did the students sell last year? Find 200% of what number is 40. One way to solve the problem is to use a double number line. The top line represents the percent. The bottom line represents the number of tickets. To show 200% and 40 tickets on the double number line, we need to extend it beyond 100%. Now let n represent the number of tickets that were sold this year, which is 100% of the tickets. Notice that the marks divide both number lines into two sections. 40 divided by 10 equals 4. So each mark represents an increase of 4 tickets. N and 100% are located at the fifth mark, so n is equal to 5 times 4, or 20. 100% is 20, and 200% of 20 is 40. The students sold 20 tickets last year.
"62 5/10% of what number is 30?
One way is to use a double number line diagram. So you have the top as your percentage, the bottom as your numbers, and 30 of what number is 62 and 5/10% on the number line are right on top of each other, because that's what we're 62 and 5/10% is what we're figuring out of this number 30. And so we're gonna do, this particular diagram has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these marks, and it says from each mark represents an increase of 6. So for each time it's increasing by 6. So because there were 5 spaces, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 leading up to 30, that is why they divided by 5 to get the increase of 6 each time. With that being said, 62 and 5/10% of 48 would be 30. Another way is to write and solve an equation. So you take 62 and 5/10% multiplied by 9 equals 30. Again, you have to take the percent, make it a decimal. So you move it over to the left twice. And now you have 0 and 625 thousandths times n equals 30. You want to get the n by itself, and so you do the inverse of multiplication, which is division, and divide 0 and 625 thousandths on both sides. Then you have n alone on one side of the equation, and once you divide 30 and 625 thousandths, you get 48. So 62 and 5/10% of 48 is 30. So these are two different ways to solve the same problem. 300% of what number is 180? So let's immediately take this 300% and make it a decimal. So we take the invisible decimal, move it over 2 spaces, so we have 3 and 0. And 0, 0, right? So we're going to leave that as just 3. So we have 3 of tells me to multiply. What number, I'm going to make that an n, is 180. So we have 100 is equal to 180. Now we need to solve for n, and we need to do the inverse of multiplication, which is division. So we're going to take the 3 and remove it by dividing by 3, so we get n by itself. So 3 divided by 3 cancels out, left with n. And then 180 divided by 3 is equal to, that's not nice, is 60. There we go. 0 and 3% of what number is 24? So let's immediately make this percent a decimal. So we're going to move it over to the left, 2 spaces. So we have decimal 0, 0, 3. And then of what number? We'll do n as our variable. Is equal to 24. So now we are going to solve for n. We have to get it by itself, and the inverse of multiplication is division. So we're going to divide by 0, 0, 3 on both sides. And so we have 0, 0, 3. And then this cancels out. We have n, and then 24 divided by 0, 0, 3. 8,000. And that's it.